Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of Decoding the Unknown. As always, I'm your host Simon, and written for me today, Déjà Vu. An episode about Déjà Vu by Emma. The format of the show, if you're new here, never read this before, gonna read it together and explore. Déjà Vu is one of those things, whenever I have it, I'm like, oh my god, no, this is the time. This is the one where I definitely have done this before. And then like 30 seconds later, you're like, that's how Déjà Vu works, isn't it? But every time I'm like, this is it. I've done this before. Let's jump into it. If you're between the ages of 15 and 50, I am, there's a 66.67% chance that you've experienced déjà vu before, otherwise known as the feeling that one has lived through the present situation in the past. What? There's only a 2/3 chance? Are you telling me a third of people out there don't experience déjà vu? Really? I thought that was something everyone experienced. I experience it fairly frequently. Greek philosophers like Plato and Pythagoras thought that the sense of familiarity you feel in the middle of a déjà vu experience is proof of reincarnation. No. I just feel it's like the brain being like, just having a little brain fart. 50 years ago, the only people who seemed to take the phenomenon of déjà vu seriously were the same people who covered themselves in healing crystals, lazed around in clouds of giggle smoke, and preached about how we should make love and not war. But for centuries now, people have believed that déjà vu provides you with a glimpse into a parallel world, or that it's a sign that the person is either psychic or has the gift of premonition. No, it's nonsense. So, have humans had the ability to predict the future all along, or is there a more reasonable explanation behind the feeling that you've watched this episode before? You haven't, I checked. Today's video is sponsored by Nola Mattress. Look, how do you sleep? You sleep on your back, you sleep on your side, you sleep on your front like a psycho. What? I don't know why I said that. I slept on my front for like most of my life, and then I became a side sleeper at some point. I'm not sure why that happened, but I'd sleep like this on my front for like my whole life. So what are Nola? Well, they make award-winning mattresses. They're an award-winning mattress brand known for exceptional cooling technology, pressure relief, long-lasting durability, and it's conveniently shipped to your door for free. Setup is dead simple. It shows up in a box, you cut the plastic, it inflates on its own within a few minutes. There's no weird off-gassing. I don't know what off-gassing is, but if my mattress that arrived off-gassed, I'd be concerned. There's no fiberglass, there's no drama. It says here, what do I like most? I'll tell you a secret, I don't actually have one of these. So Nola Mattresses were like, yeah, absolutely, we'll ship it to you. And it's like, I'm in Europe, right, Nola Mattresses, and they're like, oh, what? Did my accent give it away? And so I'm like, yo, Evan, who writes for one of my channels. I was like, Evan, you've been doing some good work lately. You want a fancy-ass mattress? And Evan's like, you what? I'm like, all you have to do is tell me if you like it. And he liked it. And so here we are, having them as a sponsor. I guess it would be more effective if Evan did this, but I feel then I'd really be pushing it a little bit with, how much I ask of Evan. But he got a free mattress, which is fantastic. Evan liked it. I like it because Evan likes it. Evan is a man of his word. You can trust Evan. Nola's mattresses are made to order in Arizona. None of that off-the-shelf warehouse stuff. Oh, that is really cool. I have a nice mattress myself. It's not a Nola mattress because I would have a Nola mattress if they shipped it here. But not even that was like custom made. And it was really expensive. Should I have it custom made for the amount I paid? I should probably have just gone to America, put this in the hold of a passenger jet, and I'd probably have saved money. What am I doing with my life? They ship free anywhere in the United States. You get 120 nights to test it, and there's a limited lifetime warranty. So yes, they are serious about standing behind their product. If you're in the market for better sleep, who the hell isn't? Who sleeps perfectly? Nobody. Check them out. Go to Nola Mattress, NOLAH, mattress.com/unknown, and use the code unknown for an extra $50 off your Nola mattress. That's on top of whatever's already on sale. Yes, and if you end up ordering, let them know in the survey that I sent you, because that's how they know that I sent you, and that's how they know that they should keep sponsoring me, which I like, because I like money. It makes the world go round, and these channels keep making videos. Thank you to Nola for sponsoring. Back to the episode. What is déjà vu? Let's set the scene, which totally isn't based on real-life events. You're sitting next to a kitchen table. Across from you sits another person. It's either a friend or a family member, and you're just having a normal everyday conversation, then all of a sudden you recognize the setting, the room, the table, the person sitting in front of you, the way the sun slants into the room, the topic you're discussing, even a pile of unwashed dishes in the sink looks familiar. and you have the oddest feeling that you've experienced that exact same moment before. You might even feel certain that you know what's coming next, but for some reason you can't quite remember what's going to happen, and if you're anything like me, you might even start to panic a little. No, I don't panic at all. I'm just like, oh, this feels familiar. Oh, this is déjà vu, but this one I have experienced before. Oh no, I haven't. Moving on with my life. No panic. Then the feeling fades and you return to your conversation. You might even smile bashfully at your confused-looking companion and explain that, sorry, just a bit of déjà vu. I can't say I've ever really wondered why we experience déjà vu. To me, it's just some weird thing our brains did. Yeah, me too, Emma. Like how we see shapes and faces in clouds, or how new mums hear their babies cry even when they're away from them for more than a minute, even though said baby is still most likely fast asleep. But that's not to say that more curious minds than mine haven't spent years trying to explain what exactly déjà vu is, and the internet is filled with articles like, can science explain déjà vu? Déjà vu, its meaning and why we experience it. Or déjà vu, what is it and why it happens? Of course, it wouldn't be an episode of Decoding the Unknown if we didn't cover at least one bad, crazy theory, so I purposefully had to go and look for the most irrational explanations behind the phenomenon, and here they are. Oh god, okay. We're just going to be shitting on them for the whole episode. I love it! And it's like, can science explain déjà vu? The answer's, I don't know. And if not yes, then the answer's no, not yet. Because if anything's going to explain it, it's going to be science and not crystals. Memories from Christmas past, present, and future. Most cultures around the world believe in some form of reincarnation, or as the ancient Greek philosopher Plato called it, the transmigration of souls. He even rationalized that déjà vu occurs when your soul recognizes a situation it had been in before, a place it had visited, or a person that it had met in a past life. An example of this would be when you meet someone and the two of you just seem to click. A related theory suggests that déjà vu occurs when your soul remembers a similar situation occurring in one of your past lives, which leads to you reliving that memory. No, why would we do this? It's just a brain going. Also, yeah, when I meet somebody, click, you just get on. Alan Brown, a professor of psychology at the Southern Methodist University, or SMU in Texas, has been studying the phenomenon of déjà vu since the 1990s. In 1994, he wanted to find out what triggered instances of déjà vu, so he conducted a study on 353 Introduction to Psychology students at SMU and the University of Texas and asked them a series of questions regarding any déjà vu experiences that they might have had. He then compared their answers with the answers of another survey that was conducted on 57 students at the University of Iowa around the same time, and noted that all of the students provided similar responses. The students were asked to think of a particular instance when they'd experienced déjà vu, and then identify what had triggered the feeling, the physical setting they were in, the words that were spoken, the activity they were engaged in, or an object they encountered. 54% of students that had been surveyed at SMU explained that their most recent déjà vu experiences had been triggered by a place they'd visited. 88% of the students from the University of Iowa said the same, and the University of Texas, 52% of the students made similar claims. I think for me, it's just totally random. In his book, The Déjà Vu Experience, Essays in Cognitive Psychology, Professor Brown explains that similar studies have been performed in the UK back in the late 1880s, noting that some of the places that seemed to trigger the most incidents of déjà vu were castles and other historic buildings. Okay. Professor Brown then concluded that, quote, perhaps the distinctiveness of the castle or the excitement of confronting such a grand edifice heightens one's sense of awareness concerning any incongruous sense of familiarity. Given the importance of physical setting in triggering déjà vu experiences, perhaps a castle presents a uniquely imposing, all-encompassing and emotionally provocative setting, ideal for eliciting a déjà vu. Okay. Castles, huh? All right. Of course, the reincarnation theory would suggest that these people had visited those castles in one of their past lives, or had even been unfortunate enough to live in or around one of those castles. Why would it be unfortunate? Living in a castle's got to be pretty dope, right? Doesn't it mean you're like the king in the past? Or a peasant, like serving the king. Maybe you're the one who wipes his butt. And I say unfortunate because if our souls really do reincarnate, the odds that they'd been mere peasants in a past life are far greater than the odds that they'd been the lords or the ladies who would have lived in those castles. Yeah, I think that's one thing, like reincarnation. No one's ever like, oh yeah, no, I'm reincarnated of a 17th century peasant. It's always like, no, I'm the reincarnation of Napoleon. It's never a boring one, is it? And the odds are you'll just be the reincarnation of a 17th century peasant. I'm sorry. Anyway, Ernst von Feutelspen, a 19th century Austrian physician and poet, scoffed at the theory that people experiencing déjà vu were reliving a memory from a past life. In a book he published way back in 1845, he reasons that if that were true, you'd find yourself wearing old-timey outfits or working in the fields when you experienced déjà vu, and that back in the Middle Ages, quote, "It is unlikely that we sat together dressed in lace clothes and kid gloves in salons having tea." All right. The third theory relating to déjà vu is perhaps the most popular one. That déjà vu is a symptom of the gift of precognition, aka the ability to predict the future. More specifically, that you experience déjà vu when you remember a dream you'd had about that specific moment. And honestly, I've had the same feeling that I was living in a moment that I'd dreamt about at some point in time. Some of the articles regarding déjà vu and prophetic dreams that I came across suggested that déjà vu might be life's way of letting you know that you're on the right track, that you're following some divine being's plan for your life, that you're well on your way to reaching whatever end fate had in store for you. Anyway, there's no way to prove that humans are capable of predicting the future. We could predict the future. It's like, I could definitely predict the future that I'm going to drive home from work today. But predicting the future in the actual, predicting randomness? No. Or that prophetic dreams aren't just based on pure coincidence. So let's move on to the fourth theory. Every time you experience déjà vu, you are somehow experiencing a similar event that is taking place in a parallel universe. Okie dokie. Honestly, that's all there is to this theory. The people who believe in it can't even explain how it would be possible to connect with our alternate selves in a parallel universe, or whether we'd experience déjà vu because, we'd synced up with our alternate selves, or we're about to make the same decision, or alter a decision that had already been made in another universe. You know why this can't be explained? Because it's obviously nonsense. And then there's the fact that the multiverse theory is based on the idea that every decision we make results in the creation of a separate timeline or universe. I mean, maybe so, but that doesn't... It's impossible to talk to those other universes or connect with them in any way. It's just how it is.
Starting on my left with 1, your number comes up, you go.
Just so you know, Jeff, you are now creating 6 different timelines.
Of course I am, Abed.
So if there are thousands or millions of versions of you out there, oh boy, there's more than that. There'd be an almost infinite number, surely, because every single decision... there's a parallel universe where at this point in the video, I just decide to stop reading this script and beat my head against this desk until I'm dead. And having that and now there's a chance that I do it right now. And now. I'm not going to, but that's a lot of parallel universes being created, if that's how this works. And even just a small handful of your alternate selves follow the same set of decisions on a set day, wouldn't you be flooded by several sets of déjà vu experiences right before you all have to make a decision that leads to the creation of thousands of new timelines? Nobody knows. So let's move on to the theories that have more reasonable explanations. The familiarity theorem. Now, there are 4 scientific theories that have been developed over the course of a century that try to explain the phenomenon of déjà vu. One of the oldest is known as the forgotten experiences theory. Ernst von Fuchs, one of Anne's, the guy from earlier, and other 19th century scholars believe that déjà vu might have a more reasonable explanation than reincarnation. Oh, you don't say, Ernst. Really now? Instead of your soul recognizing a situation or memory from a past life, they reasoned that it was more likely remembering something that happened to you as a child. In his book, Inquiries Concerning the Intellectual Powers and the Investigation of Truth, which was published in 1859, back when they had very long titles for books and studies and such things, John Abercrombie, a Scottish physician, author, philosopher, and philanthropist, reasoned that déjà vu occurs when you unknowingly walk past someone you'd known growing up, or when you enter a room that you'd last been in as a child, more specifically, between the time you were born and the age of 3 or 4. Okay? Quote, "The feelings thus produced may be so vivid as even to overpower present emotions, to excite pleasure amid circumstances of pain or depression, and to produce depressing and painful emotions when all present circumstances are calculated to give satisfaction." Dr. Abercrombie then goes on to provide several examples. One of these told the story of a young woman who entered a hospital room. She immediately experienced a sense of familiarity, sadness, and grief, but couldn't explain why. It wasn't until later that she realized she had visited her dying mother in that same room when she was a child. Another example I've come across is of a college professor who met a colleague at the house for a meeting. when the professor entered the house, she had this immediate feeling that she'd been there before and was even able to explain that the kitchen window looked out at a rose garden. When she told the host about the odd sensation of familiarity, it turned out that she'd attended a wedding in that very same house as a college student. I mean, is this déjà vu though? This is kind of just a sense of familiarity. It's like, have I been here before? I have been here before. I have been here before. That's not déjà vu though. I'm wondering why there's a picture of Van Gogh's roses on the front of this. I realize that now. I thought it would have something to do with the script, but it's just here. Why is it here? I don't know. This is useless to people listening to this in audio, but there's an image of Van Gogh's roses. Roses? Sunflowers. Sorry. Is it Van Gogh? It is Van Gogh, pretty sure. These days, we know that these incidents of déjà vu are caused by something called sensory memory recognition. Well, there we go. Basically, your senses remember a place or life event before your conscious memory does, and when you come across something that triggers a specific sensory memory, you experience a sense of familiarity that is similar to déjà vu. Another example would be how the smell of freshly mown grass reminds you of playing sports at school, or how sunblock and chlorine pools smell like summer holidays. But sensory memory recognition isn't déjà vu, since you aren't experiencing a completely new event or visiting a place that you've never been to before. The second theory is the dual consciousness or split minds theory, and it shares some similarities with the forgotten experiences theory. It explains that humans essentially have two minds, and depending on the field of study, there are multiple explanations for exactly what each mind is responsible for. In this case, we have an active mind that deals with day-to-day life, aka our consciousness, and an inactive mind that monitors everything else, aka our subconscious. According to this theory, déjà vu happens when we're tired, anxious, or distracted and not paying attention to the world around us. But our subconscious is paying attention, and it fills in the gaps that our memory and our consciousness missed. So, say you walk into a room while playing on your phone and you just glance around for a second, your consciousness might pick up on the fact that there's no one in the room, that it's warm, and that there are plants and furniture standing around, but your subconscious picks up on the sound of people talking and a phone ringing and the scent of an air freshener. This seems extremely reasonable. The next time you walk into the room, you're paying attention. At first glance, nothing has changed, but then a phone rings and you pick up on a scent of the air freshener and boom, you experience déjà vu because your subconscious remembers those exact same things happening before, even though you don't. This seems like a pretty clever explanation. I like that. I also just think it could be your brain just being like, like I've said multiple times, but this seems like I'm not against that. This seems like a reasonable theory. Another version of the dual consciousness theory suggests that a kind of misfire happens in your brain when you're looking at something, like, for example, when you experience a petit mal seizure or you're daydreaming. Your brain doesn't process the image at first, but part of your mind remembers seeing it, so the next time you see it, it seems familiar, even though you can't remember why. The third theory is the spillover theory. This theory is based on the idea that humans are creatures of habit and that people fall into the habit of following a certain script while completing a task. For example, someone who travels regularly will enter an airport, check in, wait at the gate, show their ticket, board the plane, and then settle into their seat. And then one day, they just happen to follow the same set of steps while boarding yet another plane when they experience the sense that they'd done the exact same thing before because they had. Yeah, but then it's like, oh, this feels familiar. Yeah, it's because I've been on you've walked onto a plane 1,000 times and you take your seat. And that's that. That's not déjà vu, that's just familiarity. But so far, all of these theories are based on the idea that a person had been in the same place or situation before. So why would someone who'd never been to, say, Dudley Castle in the UK experience a sense of familiarity when they visit it? Well, for the same reason that when you stepped onto a plane, it's not the same plane, but it's very similar. It's like, oh no, I've been on a 737 before. It's like, I've been to other castles before, so this one seems familiar, because castles are all kind of similar. And this is where the Gestalt familiarity theorem comes in, which kind of combines the other three theories. The Gestalt theory is based on the Gestalt principle, and it explains that humans are excellent at pattern recognition, but that when we see something, we see it as a whole, not as separate parts. So say when we see a painting of a galloping horse that looks similar to another painting of a horse that we've seen before, we immediately associate it with the first painting we saw. For example, take this painting of sunflowers by Vincent van Gogh. Simon, you might recognize it from the first page. I'm thinking it's the same picture, but it's not, is it? It's intentionally not going to be. And our viewers might recognize it from when our lovely editor incorporated it on the title card and in the YouTube version of this episode. But it's actually not the same painting. Oh, it's totally not. It's really different. Oh, it's really different. The only thing that's similar is it's flowers in a jar on a table. Our editor will now show the two paintings side by side on the screen. If you turn to the last page of this script, Simon, you'll be able to see them as well. Oh, I mean, I could just do that. Bring them together. There they are. For our podcast listeners out there, these are two of the 5 paintings of sunflowers that Vincent van Gogh has created. If you view these two paintings separately, they appear to be the same painting, but when viewed side by side, the differences between the two are obvious. The Gestalt theory reasons that pattern recognition is responsible for triggering déjà vu experiences. Basically, when humans encounter a place or situation that is familiar, but not exactly like a place or situation that they've seen before, there's a high likelihood that they will experience déjà vu, which is why some places ultimately trigger a feeling that you've been there before because you'd previously been in a place that looks and feels similar. Remember that. It becomes quite significant later on in today's episode. When Professor Alan Brown published the first edition of his book, The Déjà Vu Experience, in 2004, he explained that, quote, "What makes déjà vu unique among metacognitive phenomena is that the experience has no clearly identifiable cause and no objective behaviors against which it can be verified. In other words, the experience is purely a mental conflagration between diametrically opposed evaluations of a momentary experience with no way to objectively resolve or evaluate the accuracy of this conflict." There's a lot of big words there, mate. Which is a very professory way, there we go, of saying that there wasn't a test they could do to confirm their theories, since they had no way of triggering a déjà vu experience. Professor Brown continued to explain that by the start of the 20th century, scientists had given up on the idea of solving the problem of déjà vu. Instead, they started focusing on behaviorism, since it was easier to teach a dog to salivate at the sound of a ringing bell than figure out whether dreams could actually predict the future. So for the next 70 years or so, déjà vu was categorized under the field of parapsychology, and studies around it just assumed that if you believed in déjà vu, you probably wore a tin hat, went ghost hunting on the weekends, and believed in the existence of fairies and the Loch Ness Monster. Wait, I 100% believe in déjà vu. Déjà vu is a completely real thing. Do I think it allows you any magical abilities to predict the future? No, obviously not. But the second edition of the Déjà Vu Experience, which was published in 2022, pretty recently, Professor Brown and his colleague, Anne M. Cleary, who's a professor of psychology at Colorado State University, explained that after Professor Brown had published his book back in 2004, psychologists and neurologists alike started to realize that maybe, just maybe, there was an actual scientific explanation behind the phenomenon of déjà vu. I mean, of course there is. Of course there is. Science can pretty much explain things at some point. Like, it will eventually be able to explain things. Whether, if not now, then later. And just like that, more of them started to study it. And wouldn't you know it, it turns out that déjà vu isn't caused by one thing, it's caused by many. A glitch in the matrix. For a few decades now, neurologists have known one of the symptoms of epilepsy is recurring episodes of déjà vu. In fact, the correlation between déjà vu and epilepsy was made all the way back in the 1880s by Dr. John Hewlins Jackson, an English neurologist. He explained that right before someone with epilepsy suffered an epileptic episode, they entered a dreamy state in which they reported feeling that they were living the same moment over and over, or felt that they were having psychic visions or experiencing hallucinations. This has since been classified as one of the known symptoms of medial temporal lobe epilepsy, and studies suggest that once the patient receives treatment, they stop experiencing déjà vu. But is it possible to study an episode of déjà vu in real time and see what impact it has on the brain? Yeah, put someone in, but it happens. Even I think I experience it quite frequently, but it's still incredibly rarely. It's like once every couple of months or something. How long are you going to make me sit in an MRI machine? Well, in 2013, a group of Russian neurologists tried to answer that question. They got a group of 43 people together and continually monitored their brainwaves for 24 hours. 23 of the people had been diagnosed with epilepsy, and the remaining 20 had reported that they frequently experienced déjà vu. During the study, 3 of the people with epilepsy reported that they were experiencing déjà vu, but one of the 20 non-epileptic patients also reported experiencing it. When they compared his results with the epileptic patients, they noted that the patterns on his EEG report matched the ones belonging to the epileptic patients, specifically the ones that indicated he might be having a petit mort seizure, so that study didn't really prove anything. Similar studies also haven't been able to distinguish between an epileptic seizure and déjà vu. All they know is that the episode of déjà vu usually occurs before a person suffers a seizure. Another set of scientists tried to force the brain to experience déjà vu and approached several epileptic patients who'd had probes implanted into their brains. Whew, that's not something you want. Or maybe it is for like a medical reason, but I'd rather my brain be left alone. Those probes help the patient to regulate their brain's electrical currents and prevent seizures from happening, like a pacemaker for their brains. That's cool. It's known as either responsive neurostimulation or deep brain stimulation. I've heard of that. These probes can help neurologists to monitor which areas of the brain are active during a seizure and help map brain activity in their patients. However, the neurologists conducting the study were also able to use these probes to stimulate the medial temporal lobe, and wouldn't you know it, all of the patients reported that they experienced déjà vu. Oh my god, that's so cool. They're just like, boop, and then you experience it. Science is cool. But they also experienced all the other symptoms that usually accompanied a seizure, like nausea and lightheadedness, and they weren't able to determine whether that actually induced a state of déjà vu or just another seizure. However, epilepsy isn't the only disorder linked to déjà vu. People who suffer from schizophrenia have also reported they regularly experience instances of déjà vu, and studies indicate that if you regularly experience episodes of déjà vu, and by regularly we mean once to twice a week or multiple times a day. Okay, good. I was like, oh no, where is this going? Because I feel like I experience it regularly, but nowhere close to that often. You have a higher risk of developing schizophrenia or psychosis. Other disorders that lead people experiencing regular episodes of déjà vu are people with anxiety, bipolar disorder, and depression, but in all those cases, repeated episodes of déjà vu are just a result of their brain chemistry being a bit off. It's always a result of your brain chemistry. But then unless it's one of those like sensing, the actual memory things. But then Professor Anne Cleary and her team came up with a way to trigger a real episode of déjà vu, and just like that, they had a way to test all of the theories they had regarding the mysterious phenomenon. What? Okay. Okay, I'm curious. I've never heard of this. Like all good things in life, figuring out the secrets behind the phenomenon of déjà vu took time. First, they had to figure out what a typical person who regularly experiences déjà vu looks like. Professor Cleary and her team read up on dozens of studies that spanned more than 100 years, and were able to determine their ideal test subject was between the ages of 15 and 50, was well educated, engaged their brains by doing creative work on an almost daily basis, regularly went on trips abroad or visited new places, reported that they often remembered what they'd dreamt, and loved watching movies. This is me. This is me. The last one will make sense in a moment, I promise. Then they took all of these theories regarding déjà vu that didn't involve reincarnation or parallel worlds and figured out a way to test them by creating actual memories. Professor Cleary asked one of her old students, Dr. Ben Sawyer, to help her build a déjà vu generator in VR so that they could have a group of people experience the same events. Dr. Sawyer then applied a neuroscientist and human factors engineer, and according to a tweet he sent back in 2017, you say yes to a thing like that. Professor Cleary explains that they had applied the principles of Gestalt theory and then set up a series of scenarios for their test subjects to experience using a computer game that you might be familiar with, The Sims 2. Okay. They set up virtual tours of rooms that had a similar layout or structure, but had different purposes. For example, they built an aquarium with large windows and 2 lone standing fish tanks in the center of the floor, aka Scenario A. Okay, so there's a room that looks similar to the reception area. There's another picture of a reception area. It looks very similar. There's carpets in the same place, windows in the same place, but this one just has aquariums everywhere. And a reception area with large windows and chairs in the center of the floor, Scenario B, or a bedroom with a canopied bed, bedside tables, and a dresser, and a shop with a large display in the middle, 2 smaller ones on the side, a painting above a large display, and a till point where the dresser was in the bedroom. Okay. According to Professor Cleary, we attempted to create that seemingly inexplicable juxtaposition between intense familiarity and newness that is characteristic of déjà vu. They then had their test subjects walk into the different rooms and made sure that the rooms in Scenario A were spaced far enough apart from the corresponding Scenario B room so that their test subjects had time to forget seeing the first scenario. They then noted how many of their test subjects reported feeling a sense of déjà vu when they entered the second scenario, and would later report that people were 27% more likely to experience a sense of déjà vu if they entered a room that resembled a room that they'd been in before. However, they also found that people were 54% more likely to experience déjà vu if they followed the same route through the room. All of their senses experienced a similar input, like what is described in the dual consciousness theory. They managed to establish this by having their test subjects follow the same route through both scenarios while playing the same music and using similar light placements. They performed a similar test by showing their test subjects 3D tours of seemingly random places for all over the world and noted how many of them experienced déjà vu. Professor Cleary explains that those places were regularly used in various movies and television shows, so people visiting those places would feel a sense of familiarity because they'd already seen those places or places like it before. And that explains why people who travel a lot or visit a lot of castles would report experiencing a sense of déjà vu. Dr. Cleary and her team were even able to induce that sense of precognition so many people experienced. They gathered up a new team of test subjects and showed them the same scenarios that they'd shown to the first group. But this time, they'd added a new test. They would walk their test subjects through scenario A, and at a certain point, they'd have their test subject turn left. When the test subject was led through scenario B, they'd stop the walkthrough just before the test subjects were supposed to make a turn. When the test subjects reported feeling a sense of déjà vu, they asked them if they were experiencing a sense of precognition, and also asked them to try and guess what was going to happen next, whether they'd experienced a sense of déjà vu or not. And the result was 75% of the people who'd experienced a sense of déjà vu while doing a walkthrough of the second scene confirmed that they felt they knew what was going to happen next, while 42% of the people who didn't experience déjà vu had the exact same feeling, which proved that people can't actually predict the future, it's just an illusion. To the surprise of nobody, according to Professor Cleary, we'll quote here, "When you're faced with that juxtaposition of familiarity and novelty that is difficult to explain, if that familiarity is really intense, it can lead to an illusion of precognition, like you're right about to predict what's going to happen next. And as the scene unfolds in the way you expected, it can lead to an illusion of having known it all along. So in short, déjà vu doesn't lead to precognition, it leads to illusory precognition." And just like that, Professor Cleary and her team managed to prove 4 of the theories that were discussed and help significantly demystify the phenomenon of déjà vu. Well done! It's very clever. She's since published numerous papers on the tests she's performed, co-wrote the second edition of the Déjà Vu Experience with Professor Alan Brown, and regularly attends conferences and TED Talks where she explains her findings. In the closing chapter of the Déjà Vu Experience, Professor Brown explains that it took more than 80 studies and 135 years for us humans to finally understand déjà vu, but they still have several questions that they're trying to answer, and they're still actively researching the phenomenon. And maybe, one day, someone else will finally be able to prove that reincarnation is real or that parallel universes do exist. Probably unlikely, but you never know. That's the end of the episode. Nice short one today. Thanks for being here.